Hi folks, welcome to your lesson video for Unit 3 Geography. And we're going to start today by reviewing some geography on Map 1 in your unit packet. Map 1 shows the Atlantic seaboard of what is today the United States of America. We call it the Atlantic seaboard because it is showing us the coastline or the seaboard. This is the Atlantic Ocean and this is land. This is, again, what would today be the United States of America. So we're going to zoom in to this box on map 1. Take a closer look at the map here, and we've already seen that this area, or parts of this area, were explored by the French. Looking for the Northwest Passage, they discovered the St. Lawrence River, where they built two small settlements, which eventually became major Canadian cities, Quebec and Montreal. So if you don't already have that on your map, you're going to want to add that. But today we're going to be looking at the Netherlands and the Dutch and the area that they explored in America, which looked like this. So this is an island that sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean. It's an island that you've probably heard of because today this island is part of New York City. So this is a painting. This is not a real photograph. This is a painting of what Manhattan Island would have looked like, about 400 years ago when it was first sighted by the Dutch on their journey of exploration. Today, Manhattan Island is really considered to be the heart of New York City. New York City is a city built on islands, 3 islands. Manhattan Island here, Long Island over here, and you can't see it, it's just out of sight, but Staten Island. So today we're going to be looking at the geography of New York City and some of the history of the city, which more recently, unfortunately involved the terrorist attacks on 9/11. So September 11th, 2001, this was the site of the Twin Towers, which were destroyed in those terrible terrorist attacks. But 400 years ago, this was an area explored by Henry Hudson, an English explorer sailing for the Dutch. So let's take a look at a satellite photo. We'll zoom out here of all of New York. And on this photograph, you can see Lake Ontario here, the Finger Lakes down here. The areas of pink or purple would represent cities. These are buildings, sidewalks, roads, which are reflecting the light in a different way. So from a satellite photo, they appear to be pink or purple. So this would be Rochester. Over here, Buffalo. Down here is where New York City would be located. Now, this is a river. You can see the blue. It's a huge river. It's so huge that you can see it from dozens and dozens of miles up in the air. If not hundreds, I'm not sure how high up this photograph was taken, but maybe as high as 100 miles or even higher. And you can still see the river. You can see how wide it is. And this is what is now known as the Hudson River. And New York City is located where the Hudson River flows into the Atlantic Ocean down here in this area. This Long Island here is named Long Island. So we're going to zoom in again to Long Island in the area where the Hudson River flows into New York Harbor. We'll zoom in and check it out. There's Long Island. Now, not all of Long Island is part of New York City, but the far western part is. So New York City is located in this area here. This is Manhattan Island, the picture that I first showed you. So we will again zoom in even closer and take a look at New York City. And from a satellite view, this is what New York City would look like. You can see the difference between grass, trees, and buildings, right? So look at all the buildings here. These are skyscrapers on the very tip of Manhattan Island, again, where the old Twin Towers were located, and they have built new towers to replace them. But you can see here, it looks like a park, right? Well, that's because that is a park. That's Central Park, with a large pond in the middle of it. So switching to a map, not a photograph, but a map. New York City is divided into 4 parts, and they call these parts boroughs. A borough, I guess you can maybe think of it as maybe a county. Like it's like breaking New York City is so huge, it's like they break it into counties or into smaller parts. The boroughs are called Brooklyn, which I'm sure many of you have heard of Brooklyn. Queens, that's where the New York Mets play, if you're a Mets fan. Manhattan Island here is its own borough. The Bronx, where the Yankees play. And down here, Staten Island. JFK is an airport, so this entire area here is one. It all belongs to that huge airport, JFK. And if you take a look again at Manhattan Island, this time looking a little bit from the left. So this is the Hudson River flowing into New York Harbor. And you can see an island here, right? And maybe you can see what's standing on that island. And what's standing on that island is the Statue of Liberty. So this is where the Statue of Liberty is located. And if you've ever heard of Ellis Island, it's something you'll learn about next year, a large immigration center where many, many, many immigrants first entered the United States in the 1800s. Over here is Ellis Island. And I can tell this is an older photo because here I see the old Twin Towers. And I think this picture, it's cut off, but I think this is a newer picture with the newer Twin Towers that replace the old towers. So we're going to move on to your map in your unit packet. You're looking for this map, which shows the Dutch colony of New Netherlands and New Amsterdam. And we're going to zoom into that map because I want you to add something at the top. I want you to underline New Amsterdam, which was the Dutch town located on Manhattan Island. And I want you to make a note that this is now New York City. So the map that we're about to fill out is a map of modern-day New York City, but it used to be called New Amsterdam. So New Amsterdam was founded or originally settled by the Dutch after Henry Hudson explored this area. The Dutch came in and started a settlement, a small town where they began to trade with local Native Americans. Now the Dutch, this is going to get confusing. The Dutch come from the country of the Netherlands, which is sometimes called Holland. So this is a country with 2 names. And the people who come from this country, well, their name has nothing to do with the name of the country because we don't call these people Netherlandish or Hollandish. I guess maybe that would sound a little funny. We call these people the Dutch. And the Netherlands was located in Europe here. It's so small, I'm going to add an X to it, and the X is going to be even bigger than the country. It's a very small country in Europe, but it is located on the coast. And so the Dutch became known as great sailors and great businessmen, very heavily involved in trade and exploring. So now we're going to go back to our map here, and we can start to label the bodies of water. This is the Hudson River. This is the Atlantic Ocean, so the water is white. And the 3 islands that make up the city, Long Island here, so this is all part of New York City, and it's part of Long Island. This is also Long Island, so the light gray is also land, but this part, when you get this far to the east on Long Island, it's not considered part of New York City anymore, but this is all part of one big island, which is going to go way off the page here. So we're just looking at the far western end of Long Island. And we have Manhattan Island, which I think kind of, to me, this sort of looks like a finger pointing out into the Atlantic Ocean. And Staten Island, which is the 3rd island of New York City. Now, Manhattan Island doesn't totally look like an island here, right? But it is, because it's cut off from the rest of the mainland by this river. So New York City is a city of islands. This is what New York City would have looked like, 350 years ago or so. And it would not have been called New York City. It would have been called New Amsterdam. Amsterdam is the capital of Holland. So it made sense that when the Dutch came to America and they started their first town, they would call it New Amsterdam. Their entire colony was called New Netherlands, but this small town, which they located right on the tip of Manhattan Island, they called New Amsterdam. And in the very beginning, originally, they were not really getting along with the local Native Americans, and they had to deal with some attacks by hostile Indians who would have looked at the Dutch really as invaders. And so they had to build a wall around their town. And here's the wall that cut off New Amsterdam from the rest of the island. I'm telling you this because this wall, which was erected by the Dutch, remained there, and they built a little road along that wall, and that road became one of the most famous streets in the world, Wall Street. Wall Street today is where major banks that do business worldwide have their headquarters, and especially the New York Stock Exchange, where corporations from across America and across the world trade stock. And I'm not going to get into a discussion of what stock is right now. It has to do with business and large sums of money moving back and forth on the New York Stock Exchange. This is something that you will be learning about next year in 8th grade. So one aspect of Dutch history involves this guy, Peter Stuyvesant, a governor of the Dutch colony, not a very popular governor. He was really known for his temper, but he controlled the colony for about 20 years until 1664. And as the story goes, in 1664, the English sailed into the harbor in New Amsterdam with a warship, and they pointed their cannons at the town and said, "Give it up." And again, as the story goes, Peter Stuyvesant was so unpopular with the people of New Amsterdam that they really weren't even willing to fight to keep the city. So they gave the city up to the English. In fact, they gave the entire colony up to the English. And this is the point where New Netherlands becomes New York, named after the brother of the King of England, the Duke of York, who was given this land as his own colony. That's nice, right? How would you like to get a colony for a Christmas present? And so the colony was renamed New York, and the city was renamed New York. So New York, the name New York dates back to 1664. One other Dutch town I will mention is Fort Orange. Fort Orange was a trading post and a fort created by the Dutch, but when the English took it over, eventually it became the city of Albany, which of course is our state capital, Albany, New York, located up the Hudson River where the Hudson and the Mohawk rivers meet together. Now also notice on this map, the shape of New Netherlands, it was actually not really the shape of New York today. New Netherlands, when the English took it over, they split it in two, and the bottom half of New Netherlands became the English colony of New Jersey. So this is where the state of New Jersey would come from. The top half of New Netherlands became the British colony of New York. But again, notice how it's not shaped like the present-day state of New York. And that is because who controlled this area here? You guessed it, the Iroquois. So the English took over, but the Dutch didn't really leave. A lot of the Dutch people stayed in the English colony of New York, and the Dutch left a lot of their influence in New York State. Some of the old architecture, if If you look at these stepped roofs, these are called gables. Ice skating was a custom brought to America by the Dutch. Also, look at this. This is interesting. Some of the Dutch slept in these alcove beds. We don't have these anymore today, but wouldn't it be cool if we did? These are beds that are built into a wall, and they have little doors that you can close for privacy. And cookies came from the Dutch, as did probably my favorite Dutch tradition, their tradition of Christmas, our modern day version of Christmas with Santa Claus bringing presents to little boys and girls. That is a Dutch tradition. So to review the video, we saw that the state of New York began as a Dutch colony called the New Netherlands. New York City began as a Dutch town, New Amsterdam. And New York City is located where the Hudson River flows into the Atlantic Ocean and is built on 3 islands: Manhattan Island, Long Island, and Staten Island. So please make sure that you have completed your maps in your unit packet. And thanks for watching this lesson video on New York City geography for Unit 3.